They started shooting and we got scared, so we had to go back over the river. It was winter and I was totally wet. It was so cold. In March 2014, the civil war in Syria was getting worse, and the government were forcing young men to join the army. Ali, who was only 16, was soon to be the age when you must join. He did not want to do this because they kill their own people instead of defending them. So he made his decision to leave Damascus. Ali travelled from the capital to the port of Izmir in Turkey to get a boat to Greece. 2.5 years later, he was finally reunited with his family in Britain. In that time, he was repeatedly shot at, exposed to horrific conditions, and struggled to survive against all the odds, but hope won out. I cannot relate to such situations. I have been blessed with a stable life, for which I can only be grateful. I assuage my guilt by going on a bike ride to raise awareness and money as a way to help. From the comfort of my living room and the relative uncertainty in these strange times set me searching for hope. As with most things, the first place I looked was on a map. Google and OS provided me with some ideas. Friends suggested Hope Cove and Hope bike components as essential stop-offs. I decided that I'd just go to actual places, so villages, hamlets, locations called Hope, although I was also happy to visit Hope streets, chapels, churches, Bob Hope plaques, and anything else that I came along the way. Also, I was excited to be doing a journey from the north coast of Scotland right the way down to the length of the country, down to the south coast of Devon. And I was keen to be outside and moving after the languor of lockdown. At the same time, the bike project was looking to raise money, asking people to ride the distances of common refugee routes. So Ali's journey from Damascus to Izmir is 918 miles, which was suggested to be cycled cumulatively over 1 to 2 months. I tweaked the route on my commute to match this exactly, and hoping to do it all in 1 to 2 weeks. I'm not generally a big fan of this style of fundraising, uncertain why others should be pressured to pay for me to do what I'd probably do anyway for fun. But I love what the Bike Project do, donating bikes to asylum seekers in the UK. It is simple and makes lives better. I have no personal affiliation. I have never been a refugee. We haven't had close conversation with anyone who has sought asylum. I have no motivation beyond giving a crap about people who've drawn the short straw in their time and place of birth. I hope to raise awareness of the Bike Project, show my allegiance, and suggest that if people were looking to donate money, this would be a great place to go. So I fixed the bits on Claude Philippe, made a pretty logo. So Claude Philippe is my 1980s Peugeot bike that was actually given to me by a friend, and I was ready to go and hope on a bike. I decided to start at the top, largely due to logistics. The sleeper to Inverness has to be booked well in advance, while trains back from Devon are more relaxed. So from Inverness, I took the slow train north, trundling through forgotten villages along firths and lochs. I left at Kinbrace, a request stop serving 3 houses, and made the final 60 kilometres to the start by bike. I reached Loch Hope about the same time as the midges. By the time I danced around in excitement and cycled to a bivvy spot, they'd turned the volume up to 11. My smitternet saved my face as I lay out my bivvy bag. Setting up a tarp wasn't an option. Only my neckline and fingertips were bare as I chowed down on a loaf of bread, shoving large chunks inside my headnet to minimise exposure. My private colony grew by the second, while I tightened every cord I could, burrowing deeper. The pitter-patter of 1,000 tiny feet was a drumbeat to the incessant whir-hum of 1,000,000 wings in the air above my head. I slept little. By 7 a.m, I was the only thing on Northwest Scotland's Midge TripAdvisor, and I had to make a break for it. Scrunched up my sleep kit, hastily tied it to my bike, hoping rather than expecting it to stay put as I made my getaway. I passed camper vans parked up, jealous of the inhabitants blissfully unaware of the carnage outside their metallic havens. 7 miles an hour is your target to outrun a midge, a speed I diligently maintained up the steepest of hills until mid-morning, when they retired to bed. In Leg, I found a shop selling chocolate yazoo, my drug of choice on these occasions. I stopped to dry and repack my kit. A cloud of midges floated up as I released the straps. A robin sat on my handlebars, tempted by the pesky flits of dinner flying around me. Later that day, I passed and repassed another cyclists, our routes intertwining over the few roads south. He introduced himself as John. I rode from Bristol to Cape Wrath along Durness Way, raising money for Cancer Research. Then I thought, as I'm here, I might as well cycle back. He recommended me an excellent wood-fired pizza place in Inverness. People are awesome. After Midgate, I daren't risk another night under the stars this side of the border, so booking a bed became another task each morning. This gave me a fixed target to aim for each night, though prevented me from heading further if the wind was in my hair. The regular showers and a place to wash and dry my shorts was definitely a blessing, though it makes for a more cushy journey. My brother chided me for lacking my granddad's Chindit spirit, but then he hadn't chosen to be there, and Booking.com was many decades away. We all adjust to the situation we were in as best we can. Cycling the Great Glen Way was a highlight. It bisects Scotland following Loch Ness, Caledonian Canal, and a series of rivers and lochs from Inverness to Fort William and beyond. The cycle route takes you up over mountains, giving you tantalising glimpses of sparkling lochs before bursting out at the water's edge and following the gentle towpath along the dreamy canal. At a summit, I stopped to take in the view and revel in the endorphins. A couple were having a car picnic, and we chatted bikes as they recounted their younger days. They offered me their last sandwich. It's Morrison's finest. You need it more than us. People are awesome. From Fort William, you take the ferry to the north side, where a single-track road winds through mossy, tangled fairy tale woodlands, and sheep graze idly on the foreshore. It was one of those moments of heaven, low evening light twinkling on the loch. My first big city was Glasgow. After 3 days in the wilds of the Highlands, the return to civilization was a shock to the system. I'd been out in seas of heather, the purple waves specked with white horses of bog cotton, endless expanses reaching to the horizon. Now retail parks, suburbs, and traffic lights felt alien and bizarre, jarring with the senses. I was lucky enough to stay with the wonderful Jed, she'll be talking later, and she also introduced me to her collection of penguins, and I felt very much at home. She'd failed to tell me that she lived at the highest point in Glasgow, but I was delighted to know I'd be setting off next morning downhill, giving time for a generous breakfast to settle. People are awesome. After the glorious sunshine of the wilds of Scotland, England treated me to typical August weather. The days of drizzle, rain, and headwinds kept me head bowed. My routine evolved into a general pattern: pack up for my bed of bivvy early, then head to a cafe. Here I'd eat my own body weight in beans on toast, check out where I could buy chocolate yazoo en route while writing up Instagram posts. I enjoyed the process, but it would often be approaching midday before I set off properly. The next hope I came to was in the North Pennines, close to the infamous Barnard Castle. I climbed up Tan Hill before dropping back into the valley and climbing another vertical up to Hope Edge, and down the other side to a couple of farmhouses that tried to constitute a village. I squealed in joy when I saw the sign. Hope. Bold and simple and transport heavy. Hope could be found down this little lane. Hope was what I needed as my tired legs looked forward into the evening gloaming. I made it back up to the peak when my gear cable snapped. My bike always knows which spares I haven't brought. It was now getting dark, so I did the only sensible thing and coasted downhill and went to the pub. I paused at the notice board and found a little card, mobile bike mechanic. I used the pub Wi-Fi to send an email, though they couldn't do me dinner, and then pushed off to set up my tart against the rain in the lee of a dry stone wall. In the morning, I emerged into the mizzle and cruised to the next village where I finally had signal and called the mechanic. Paddy had seen my email the night before and had already been up to the pub to ask after me. Apparently it was where he got married, so he knew it well. My stealth camping was apparently a little too stealth, and he hadn't seen me and gone on to another job. But he did direct me onto the Dales Bike Centre, which lay a mile further along my route, entirely downhill. I had a proper coffee as Stu fixed my cable. People are awesome. And Claude could not have chosen a better opportunity to break. I was very happy this was the only mechanical I had the whole trip, not even a puncture. Before I left home, I had researched hope quotes. Each time I wrote, I read through them all, finding one that might be particularly apt for that day. It gave the journey focus and meaning as I considered what hope is, and how it can lead us forward through what seems impossible. Hope has been described as humankind's greatest strength and greatest weakness. It is through hope that we can bring change. It is through hope we can continue blindly into the darkness, believing it to be right, the outcome as yet unknown. My journey was relatively comfortable, but having hope to spur me on was still a great help. I started seeing hope everywhere, on notice boards, road names, card number plates. Hope is everywhere for those who care to look. Sunshine, showers, and a few hills took me on to the next Hope in the Peak District, by far the largest Hope on the map. At the Grasshopper Cafe, I had breakfast with various friends who had never met, but all happened to be nearby. We shared brines, chutney, toasties, and tales of cycling, walking, and paddleboarding adventures. So it was lunchtime before I set out. After days of being mainly alone, being surrounded by company was delightful. There was something wonderful about the coming together of disparate but connected individuals. And as you've noticed, people are awesome. After that, the Hopes came thick and fast. High Hope, Hope, Hope Bagot, Hope under Dinmore, Lower Hope, Hope. The peaks and Welsh borders seem thick with them. I'm reliably informed that Hope comes from Welsh word for hamlet, so maybe this is no surprise. My greatest fear on the trip was height. In the UK, we are spared the precarious cliff edge roads that litter the Alps, so here it falls largely to suspension bridges to give me panic attacks. I'd added on almost 100 miles to avoid the bridge into Inverness, the Firth Road Bridge and the Severn Bridge. I loved the little bridges further upstream, though aware that every river crossing heralded yet another hill to climb on the other side. As I continued back towards the edge of Britain, and as I headed south, the roads grew ever narrower again. Some had not just moss, but grass, ferns, and a full ecosystem thriving down the centre, while even a Fiat Panda would be brushing the vegetation on both sides, and the solid earth banks barely much wider. A stoat ran across the tarmac, squealing in fear as my front wheel came within inches of its speeding backside. I made a similar sound when I saw my first sign to Hope Cove, my final destination, just 2.5 miles left after 1,000 on the road. The end was tangible. I stood with my feet in the sea, shivering in my anorak, clutching a warm pasty, hot tea, and a freezing cold ice cream. I squiggled the sand between my toes, sad and relieved that the journey was over. For 12 days, I had to do nothing but ride, eat, sleep, repeat. Now reality was calling, when no one knows that's going to look like right now. Uncertainty reigns over all, but with hope, we'll get through. We are the lucky ones who choose to adventure and may make the journey as hard or as easy as we like, safe in the knowledge that our passport, embassy, and a wad of dollars can generally keep us safe, and are never more than a maxed out credit card away from a flight home. Refugees in the UK have escaped horrific conditions, endure treacherous journeys to reach Britain. While asylum applications are considered a process of months or even years, they receive £37.75 a week to live off. A bicycle, complete with locks, light and helmet, allows them to access essential services, see friends and family, while keeping fit and active without having to give up food to pay for public transport. The freedom of the bike becomes very real. And being given a bike shows that there are people here who care. Thank you to everyone who donated. Now 12 adults and a child can have a bicycle, with money over for tea and biscuits full of volunteers. The Bike Project also funds bike training and local buddy systems, allowing new arrivals to get to know their new city inhabitants. Hope reigns. So I want to say a huge thank as well to Jed and a couple, Trevor and JT, who put me up in the peaks, to everyone who met me en route, to Sarah Weiler, who gave me the name, to various people who have offered suggestions, to everybody who supported me, either just through social media or just through donating, and that's been amazing. And yeah, people are awesome. So thank you very much.